I've spent close to 2 decades behind the wheel of a truck. Long nights, empty highways, the steady vibration of the engine, it all becomes second nature after a while. You stop noticing the miles, the gas stations blur together, and silence becomes your closest companion. Most nights are forgettable. But there's one drive I wish I could forget. It happened years ago, somewhere along a dead stretch of highway that didn't see much traffic after midnight. The kind of road where your headlights feel like the only light in the world. That night started like any other. I was hauling a refrigerated load across state lines, nothing valuable, just frozen goods on a tight schedule. The air outside was cold enough to bite, but the sky was clear, wide open, and filled with stars. No wind, no rain, just stillness. The road was empty for miles. Then I saw him. At first I thought it was just a shadow near the shoulder, but as I got closer, my headlights revealed a man standing beside a worn duffel bag, his thumb sticking out. A hitchhiker. I drove past him without slowing down. Didn't even think twice at first. But after a few seconds, something started to bother me. Maybe it was the isolation, maybe it was the cold, or maybe it was just habit. I'd picked up people before, and nothing bad had ever come from it. So I slowed down, checked my mirrors. No one else on the road. I pulled over. It didn't take long for him to reach the truck. He climbed up quickly, breathing a little hard, like he'd been waiting a while. "Appreciate it," he said, shutting the door behind him. He looked rough, mid-30s maybe, unshaven, hoodie pulled low, jeans covered in dust. "Where you headed?" I asked. "East," he replied. "As far as you're going?" I nodded. "I'll get you closer." For a while, everything felt normal. He said his name was Kyle. Claimed his car had broken down miles back, and he'd been trying to catch a ride for hours. I'd heard that story plenty of times before, but something about him didn't sit right. He wasn't talkative like most hitchhikers. Instead, he stayed quiet, occasionally glancing around the cab, at my GPS, the radio, even the small lockbox under the dash. Then came the questions. "How long you been driving?" "Long time. You always drive alone?" That one made me pause. "Yeah," I said, keeping my eyes on the road. After that, the silence felt heavier. Then I noticed his bag. It had shifted slightly, the zipper just open enough to reveal something metallic inside. When the truck hit a small bump, the object slid forward into the light. A knife. Not small, not harmless. A large blade. I didn't react, just kept driving. My grip on the wheel tightened. A few minutes later, he spoke again. "Hey, you think you could pull over up ahead?" "For what?" "Just need a minute." I shook my head. "There's a stop coming. Better to wait." His tone changed slightly. "I'd rather not." That was the moment everything inside me went cold. I glanced at him. He wasn't looking away this time. He leaned down, grabbed the duffel bag, and pulled the zipper open fully. The knife was clearly visible now. He wrapped his hand around it, not raising it, just letting me see. "I think we should stop," he said quietly. The road ahead stretched endlessly. No lights, no cars, nothing. Except I remembered something. A way station up ahead, sometimes empty, sometimes not. I kept my voice steady. "All right, there's a place coming up." He relaxed slightly. But I didn't slow down. Instead, I kept driving at the same speed. Then I reached for the radio. "Dispatch, I'll be pulling into the way station in a minute," I said loudly. It wasn't real. But he didn't know that. He stiffened immediately. The lights appeared in the distance. And luck, pure luck, was on my side. A patrol car was there. Engine running. Officer inside. "Just keep going," he said quickly. "Too late," I replied. The moment I pulled in, everything changed. He shoved the knife back into the bag, grabbed it, and opened the door before I fully stopped. He jumped out and started walking fast. The officer stepped out, watching him. I leaned out and said, "He's got a weapon." That was all it took. The officer shouted and gave chase. The man ran, but not far. Within seconds, he was on the ground. I stayed in the truck, my hands shaking harder than I'd ever felt before. Later, they told me who he was. Wanted. Dangerous. And not far from where I picked him up, someone had already been threatened with a blade just like the one I saw. I drove away that night with something different sitting in my chest. Not relief, not pride, just the weight of how close I came to making the wrong choice. Because if that patrol car hadn't been there, if I'd pulled over when he first asked, that quiet stretch of road might have been the last place I ever stopped. Since then, I don't slow down anymore. Doesn't matter how cold it is, doesn't matter how desperate someone looks. Some lessons don't need to be learned twice. And out there, on empty roads where no one can hear you, you don't take chances. I never planned on spending my life working nights, but somehow it stuck. One job turned into another, and before I knew it, I'd spent years sitting in empty buildings while the rest of the world slept. You get used to it, the silence, the routine, the way every small sound feels louder than it should. Most shifts are dull. That's the point. But one job didn't follow that pattern. It started a few weeks after I took a contract at a large storage facility just outside the city. The place was massive, rows of metal shelving, sealed crates stacked to the ceiling, long hallways that all looked identical. During the day it was busy, but at night it felt abandoned. My job was simple: monitor the cameras, walk the building every hour, and log anything unusual. The first night was quiet. Doors locked, nothing out of place. The camera system was new, clear feeds covering every corner. It felt like nothing could happen without being seen. Around midnight, I noticed something small. Room 7, one of the far storage units, had its door slightly open on the monitor. I was sure it had been closed earlier. I walked down, checked it, and shut it tight. Nothing strange inside, just boxes. Still, something about it stuck with me. Later, around 2 a.m., I caught movement on the loading dock camera. Just a flicker. Too fast to make out. I grabbed my flashlight and checked it in person. Nothing there. Empty. I told myself it was just fatigue, but the rest of the shift felt off. On the monitors, small things didn't match what I remembered. A hallway looked longer than before. A stack of boxes seemed rearranged. Doors I knew I had checked appeared slightly open again. I blamed it on being tired. That excuse didn't last long. The next morning, I reviewed the footage like we were required to do. Everything looked normal until I reached the north aisle camera. That's where I saw Greg. He was the guard from the shift before mine, walking casually, checking the rows. Then he paused, looked around, and in the middle of the aisle, he disappeared. Not behind anything, not out of frame, just gone. I replayed it over and over, slowing it down frame by frame. There was no glitch, no distortion. 1 second he was there. The next, he wasn't. I reported it immediately. Later that day, I was told Greg hadn't shown up for his next shift. He was officially missing. After that, being alone in that building didn't feel the same. Every shadow seemed darker. Every hum of the lights felt louder. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me through those cameras, or from somewhere they couldn't see. On my third night, I saw the movement again. The loading dock camera. This time it wasn't just a flicker. Something moved across the floor, fast, smooth, almost gliding. Not walking, sliding. I stood up immediately, heart pounding, and grabbed my flashlight. The dock was empty when I got there, but it didn't feel empty. The air felt heavier, colder, like stepping into a room where something had just left. Back in the office, I pulled up footage from earlier that night. My focus went straight to room 7 again. The camera angle looked wrong, slightly tilted. I zoomed in, and there he was, Greg, walking toward the door, looking over his shoulder like he knew something was behind him. Then, just like before, he vanished, right in front of the door. I froze. Then I saw something in the reflection of the monitors behind me. Movement. I turned quickly. Nothing there. Then I heard it. A whisper. Soft at first, almost like air moving through a vent. "Leave, now." My chest tightened. Every instinct told me to get out, but I couldn't move. I forced myself to look back at the screens. The shadow was there again on the loading dock feed. Only now I could see its shape. It wasn't human. It moved too smoothly, like it wasn't bound to the floor or walls. Then something rolled against my foot. I looked down. My flashlight had fallen. When I picked it up and turned, the beam landed in the corner of the room. There was a man sitting there. I hadn't heard him come in. He looked exhausted, pale, eyes wide like he hadn't slept in days. A janitor's uniform hung loosely on him. "You've seen it," he said quietly. I couldn't answer. I just nodded. "I've been watching it for weeks," he continued. "It changes things. Rooms, hallways, they don't stay the same." He pointed toward the monitors. "Some places aren't real. Not all the time. If you walk into them at the wrong moment, you don't come back." My stomach dropped. "Greg?" I asked. He nodded slowly. "Room 7 isn't just a room." The silence that followed felt suffocating. "Why are you still here?" I asked. He gave a weak, hollow laugh. "Waiting for a chance to leave without it noticing." That was enough for me. I grabbed my coat immediately. As I walked toward the exit, the lights flickered overhead. The hall felt longer than it should have been. Shadows stretched along the walls like they were reaching. I pushed through the exit doors and stumbled into the cold night air. It felt like surfacing from deep water. I drove off without stopping. The next day, I quit. Didn't argue, didn't explain much. I knew they wouldn't believe it anyway. A week later, I heard another guard had gone missing. Soon after that, the facility shut down. No details, no investigation made public. I don't work warehouse night shifts anymore, because once you've seen something like that, you start to understand that not every place in this world follows the same rules, and some doors should never be opened. I never trusted how quiet the mall felt after closing. It didn't feel empty, just waiting. Around 2 a.m., my radio crackled with static. No voice. Then I heard footsteps behind me, soft, uneven, like bare feet. I stopped. They stopped. I moved again. They followed. A light flicked on inside a closed children's store. The gate was half open. Inside, racks were knocked over, and wet footprints led to a dressing room curtain. I called out. Nothing. My phone had no signal. My radio was dead. The lights flickered, and something shifted behind the curtain. I didn't stay. I ran to the security office, locked the door, and called 911. "Someone's inside," I said. "Something's wrong." They told me to stay put. So I did, listening for those footsteps to come back. So I did. But the sounds didn't stop. From somewhere above, metal slammed. Then another bang echoed through the building. I checked the camera monitors. Most were down, just static. One feed showed the food court, distorted and green. In the corner, a figure crouched low, rocking slowly. I stared, unable to move. Minutes passed, though it felt longer. Then I heard sirens outside. Relief hit me instantly. I stepped out to meet the officers when they came in through the parking ramp. 2 of them. Calm, focused. They swept the mall while I followed, explaining what I saw. At the food court, chairs were overturned, and a soda machine had been smashed, syrup spilled across the floor. We checked the clothing store. The curtain hung still. No one inside, no footprints leading out. Just that same wet trail, ending in the middle of the floor. Later, one officer checked the system. Turns out the cameras had glitched from a power surge. The figure I saw? Just a distorted reflection loop, my own silhouette, twisted by interference. And the footprints? A homeless man had broken in earlier during the rain. Barefoot, soaked, probably scared. When alarms triggered, he panicked and escaped through a maintenance hatch near the loading bay. They found it open. By the time everything was done, morning light had started creeping in. The mall looked normal again. Empty, harmless. One officer handed me coffee and told me I handled it right. Maybe I did. But as I walked out into the daylight, I couldn't shake the feeling. Because for a few hours that night, the place didn't feel empty. It felt like something was watching. And even now, I know the truth was simple. But fear doesn't care about the truth. It just waits for the dark and the silence to make you believe something else is there.
Before you go, tell me, which part of this story felt too familiar? Drop it below. You won't be the only one. Most people close this tab and go to sleep. Most people. You're not most people. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. These aren't one-off horrors. They're pieces of a larger nightmare. New darkness every week.